It was a bright afternoon at an exclusive shooting range where wealthy elites came to show off their skills and expensive gear. Among the crowd dressed in designer clothes and custom gear, one person stood out, not because of wealth or fame, but because she didn't seem to belong. She was an elderly woman, wearing a plain coat, scuffed shoes, and holding a weathered case. Whispers and side glances followed her every step. Some even laughed quietly, nudging their friends. Asterisk, what's she doing here? Asterisk, is she lost? Asterisk. But the old woman didn't say a word. She walked calmly to the line, set her case down, and opened it with steady hands. Inside was an old, well-kept pistol, nothing flashy, nothing new. The smirks turned into chuckles. One billionaire leaned over and joked loudly, "Hope she doesn't hurt herself." Others laughed. Cameras rolled, phones were out. Everyone expected a disaster. What happened next, though, no one saw coming. With eyes focused and hands firm, she took aim. 10 shots, 10 targets, and not a single miss. Every bullet landed dead center, one after another, with eerie precision. The same crowd that mocked her seconds ago was now stunned into silence. Even the billionaire's grin faded as his jaw slowly dropped. Who was this woman? And how could she shoot like that? The truth behind her skill, and what happened after, left the entire range speechless, and that's where things really began to unfold. The silence at the range lingered longer than anyone expected. People stared at the paper targets, each one with a perfect hole in the center, like something out of a movie. The old woman quietly packed up her pistol, as if what she just did was nothing unusual. But now, no one was laughing. The billionaire who had mocked her earlier stepped forward, his expression unsure, caught between pride and disbelief. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" he asked, trying to sound casual, but his voice gave him away. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes scanned the crowd, calm and unreadable. A few of the range officials approached, clearly intrigued. One of them whispered, "She's not in the system. No name, no membership. Nothing." That only added to the buzz. Whispers turned into questions. Who was she? Was she military? A retired agent? Or just someone with a past no one saw coming? A young man in the back, who had filmed the whole thing on his phone, was already uploading it online. "This is going viral," he said. "She's like a real-life legend." And yet, the woman said almost nothing. She sat down on a bench near the exit, gazing off into the distance. There was something about her, something heavy, like she carried a story too big to tell in just words. Whatever her past was, it clearly wasn't ordinary. And the billionaires, used to being the center of attention, now found themselves watching her in complete awe, not knowing what would come next. Later that evening, the video of the old woman's flawless shots had already spread across social media. It had hundreds of thousands of views within hours. People called her the mystery sharpshooter and grandma sniper. But despite the fame growing online, no one at the range knew where she came from. She didn't give a name, didn't sign any waivers, and left before anyone could stop her. Some thought it was a setup, an actor hired to teach the rich a lesson. Others believed it was real, and that made the story even more gripping. Behind the scenes, the billionaire who had mocked her, Edward Harlan, wasn't taking the moment lightly. Known for his ego and obsession with control, he hated being upstaged, especially in front of his elite guests. He ordered his assistant to find out everything about the woman, no expense spared. "I want to know who she is, where she came from, and who taught her to shoot like that," he said, his voice tense. "No one makes me look like a fool." Meanwhile, a former Marine named Jake, who had been working as a security consultant at the range that day, couldn't get the woman out of his mind. Something about the way she moved, how she breathed between shots. It reminded him of training drills he hadn't seen outside classified operations. He started digging on his own quietly, wondering if he'd stumbled upon someone from a forgotten chapter of military history. But the deeper he looked, the stranger things became. Files missing, records erased, and the only clue left was a faded photo from decades ago, with someone who looked just like her. Days passed, but the mystery only grew deeper. News outlets started covering the story. Headlines like "Unknown Woman Shocks Billionaires with Expert Shooting Skills" and "Internet's Grandma Sniper Leaves Elite Crowds Speechless" spread fast. Still, no one had a name, no background, just a video, some shaky cell phone clips, and endless theories. Edward Harlan's team finally came up with something. A blurry black and white photo from a Cold War-era training camp. In the corner stood a young woman, holding the same model pistol the old woman had used. The photo was classified until recently, and every lead from it seemed to vanish into a wall of silence. Harlan grew obsessed. He began hosting private gatherings at his estate, inviting only trusted insiders. He believed this woman posed a threat, not just to his pride, but to something larger, something hidden. Meanwhile, Jake kept following his own trail. He visited retired military contacts, pieced together whispers of an old special program, one never publicly acknowledged, known only by a codename, Project Ember. According to rumors, it trained a small group of elite marksmen, mostly women, who were selected for missions too sensitive for even black ops. When the program was shut down, their identities were wiped, their existence buried. As Jake closed in, he began noticing strange cars parked outside his apartment, calls with no voice on the other end. Someone didn't want this story uncovered. And at the center of it all was the quiet old woman who had disappeared just as suddenly as she arrived, until one final message reached Jake's inbox. No sender, just a single line. Asterisk, "You're not ready for the truth." Asterisk. Jake stared at the message on his screen, the words burning into his thoughts. Asterisk, "You are not ready for the truth." Asterisk. He'd seen enough to know this wasn't just paranoia anymore. He was being watched. That same night, his apartment was broken into. Nothing was stolen, but his files on Project Ember were gone. Every printout, every note, every photo. But the intruder made a mistake. They missed a flash drive Jake had hidden behind a loose wall panel. On it was an encrypted file, something he had copied from a retired intelligence officer's laptop during a tense meeting just days earlier. When Jake opened it, the pieces started falling into place, and what he saw changed everything. The old woman didn't just train with Project Ember, she led it. Codenamed Whisper. She was the highest-scoring operative the program ever produced. She had once taken part in global missions that even governments refused to acknowledge. But after a mission went wrong, she vanished. The program was shut down. The agents disbanded or silenced. Whisper was assumed dead. But here she was, resurfacing at a Billionaires shooting event of all places. Why? Then came the second twist. Edward Harlan wasn't just a rich man with a bruised ego. He was tied to that final mission, the one that made Whisper disappear. The more Jake uncovered, the more it became clear. Harlan wasn't looking for revenge. He was hiding something, and the woman's appearance wasn't a coincidence. It was a warning. Only now, someone else had joined the chase. A private security firm, well-armed, well-funded, and hired by someone who wanted Whisper gone for good. Jake was running out of time, and so was she. Jake followed the last lead to an abandoned airfield just outside the city. It was nearly midnight, and the wind whipped through the rusted hangars. His heart pounded, the flash drive clutched in his hand. He knew she would be there. And she was, standing in the shadows, her figure still and quiet, just like the day she stunned everyone at the range. "I told you," she said softly, "you weren't ready for the truth." Jake stepped closer, unsure if he was walking into a trap or toward answers. "Harlan," he said, "you knew him. You knew what he did." Her eyes narrowed. "He sold us out. Our last mission wasn't meant to fail. It was meant to erase us." She handed Jake a worn envelope. Inside were photographs, classified documents, names, proof that Edward Harlan had used Project Ember operatives for illegal operations, then buried the evidence. She had kept quiet for years, but when Harlan's name started showing up in political and weapons contracts again, she decided it was time. Then headlights cut through the darkness. Dozens of men in tactical gear flooded the airfield, Harlem's private security. Jake ducked behind a crate, but the woman didn't flinch. She stepped forward, pistol in hand, calm as ever. One by one, she dropped them with perfect precision, until only silence remained. Jake stood stunned. "Why come back now?" he asked. She gave him a tired smile. "I didn't come back for revenge. I came back to finish what I started." But just as Jake thought it was over, a phone rang in the pocket of one of the downed men. He picked it up. A distorted voice said, "She wasn't the only one we erased. And now, they're waking up too." The line went dead. Jake stood frozen, the voice on the other end of the phone still ringing in his ears. The message was clear. This wasn't the end, just the edge of something even deeper. He turned to the woman, but she was already walking away into the night, her silhouette fading into the dark like a shadow never meant to be seen. No goodbye, no promise to return. She had done what she came to do: expose Harlan, remind the world that silence doesn't mean weakness, and warn those who thought their past crimes were forgotten. The next morning, headlines broke again. Leaked documents from the envelope made their way to major news outlets. Billionaire tied to secret covert program. Whistleblower reveals truth behind Project Ember. And unknown woman sparks global investigation. Harlan disappeared from public view, his legal team scrambling to contain the fallout. As for Jake, he left his job and began working as an independent journalist. He started telling real stories, the ones buried by power and fear. His first story was about a nameless woman who walked into a shooting range and reminded the world that true strength doesn't wear a label. The internet never found her again. No interviews, no trace. But the legend of Whisper lived on, not just as a viral video, but as a quiet reminder that truth, no matter how deeply hidden, always finds a way to return. And somewhere, in a forgotten place, another erased soul was waking up. The story wasn't over. It had only just begun.